Georgia O'Connor here. Big up Julius. Ring IQ. Welcome to the relay.
Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Zulina Munoz was very recently in action abroad, so far from home, against the reigning WBC Super Bantamweight interim champion, Korte Chiwandire. And this one didn't work out as I predicted. It didn't work out as I expected. Loba Munoz got off to a bad start. A very bad start against Korte Chiwandire.
This feels like it was a combination of two things. Two things primarily. A fighter hitting her stride and coming into her own, and another fighter who's beginning to fade.
A fighter who is no longer today what she used to be yesterday. I feel like Korte Chiwandire,
she's hit her stride. She's coming into her own. Korte Chiwandire, who has very generous dimensions for a super bantamweight, 122-pound fighter.
Good height, good length, good mobility, good speed.
Korte's best punches were her straight punches, her straight shots from the outside coming in, whereas Zulina Munoz's best shots were her bent arm punches, her hooks, mid-range to inside. Showed some good body work in the fight, but it was a day late and a dollar short. Korte banked several of the early rounds, scoring two knockdowns throughout the course of the match.
You know, going into this thing, I knew that Zulina Munoz's punch resistance, it is waning. You know, she gets hit by any little nothing shot, and she's buzzed.
That's the weight of 60 professional contests, 60 professional bouts bearing down on her and catching up to her.
Zulina Munoz, who isn't old in terms of age, she's only 35 years old. She's not old in terms of age, but in terms of experience and wear and tear. 60 professional contests, 60 professional bouts. That makes for a hard 35 years old. That's what she is.
And I knew that today's Zulina Munoz, she's chinny.
But I figured, given her professional experience, she might be able to eke out a decision abroad in hostile territory.
Nope.
Wasn't the case.
Nope.
Korte Chiwandire's movement and her straight punches from the outside coming in made it difficult for Zulina Munoz to manage the distance. She did bank about three, maybe 4 rounds. I definitely saw her win the 7th and 8th rounds. The 10th and final round, I gave that to Zulina Munoz. But for the most part, Chiwandire won this thing. She won it legitimately. She won it fair and square. And now she is the mandatory challenger for Yamileth Mercado, who's going to be in action later on this month on the 29th against Mexican legend Barbie Juarez.
It'll be a different set of challenges if she's opposite the ring Yami, because Yami's got a chin. Yami's got great punch resistance, much better than Zulina Munoz.
She is many years younger than Zulina Munoz and far more durable, goes without saying. And, you know, that'll be a different fight with a different aesthetic.
But congratulations to Korte Chiwandire for retaining the WBC interim title.
For putting on a show and putting up a good fight. Credit to Zulina for traveling abroad and rolling the dice. It didn't work out in her favor.
But she showed real grit, real championship mentality, getting off the canvas 2 times.
An entertaining fight while it lasted. Now on to bigger and better things for Korte Chiwandire. We then come to the featherweight contest as part of Matchroom's maiden voyage into the Australian market. Unbeaten Sky Nicholson versus her countrywoman, Christina Mousy Jacobs. And Sky was able to easily manage the distance, which I expected. I expected that behind her length and her movement, her speed, mobility,
and agility, she could bull and matador this thing. And in truth, based on what I'm seeing so far, she can bull and matador quite a few fighters, quite a few situations in today's featherweight division.
She's a pure boxer, a textbook pure boxer. Long and loose, sticking and moving and staying on the outside, staying on the move, fighting on the balls of her feet. Perhaps that's why Sky doesn't really generate knockouts. She hasn't proven to be a big puncher because she's fighting on the fly. She's fighting on the move. She's not really sitting on her shots. I did anticipate that because this was Sky's first fight in her native Australia as a professional, she might produce a knockout for the hometown crowd.
That didn't happen, but everything else I anticipated did. She was able to easily manage the distance against the very limited
Christina Jacobs, God bless her. She just didn't have the feet and the volume for this thing. You know, against somebody like Sky Nicholson,
you don't just need a world-class set of hands to catch up to her. You also need a world-class set of feet, because she's got some good feet on her.
The way she pecks away at her opponent 1 and 2 shots at a time, very responsible, very efficient and accurate.
hooking on the turn. You'll notice that it's fast becoming Sky Nicholson's signature. She shoots the right hook, then pivots, or shoots the right hook as she pivots. Hooks on the turn, bull and matadoring her opponent whilst walking them into the shot. You know, it might seem repetitive and monotonous to some, but the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
If you can continuously walk your opponent into that shot, why not keep doing it? Even here now, at just 5-0, just 5 wins, no losses, and no draws, I could see Sky Nicholson giving a lot of fighters at featherweight a lot of problems with that pure boxer-based style. It's going to take a world-class pressure fighter to really force her to fight and take her out of her comfort zone. Even now at 5-0, I would actually give Sky Nicholson good odds against the Sarah Mahfoud. It's an Erica Cruz, you know.
Yeah, she's not ready for Erica. Pure boxer's kryptonite is the come-forward, aggressive pressure fighter that's
Not afraid to take one to give one. Sky not being a very big puncher, at least not yet, it's hard to imagine that she would be able to keep Erica Cruz off of her.
Jacks need more bacon.
I don't think she's ready for a fight like that, but I'd give her decent odds against the former IBF featherweight champion of Denmark, Sarah Mahfoud. I think Sky's got the right base style to win a decision against her. Nina Menke, Germany's own Nina Menke, who was very recently in action against Karina Kopinska. That's also a sensible and sensical fight for Sky Nicholson moving forward into 2023. Congratulations to her for advancing to a professional record of 5 wins, no losses, no draws, no recorded knockouts, not yet, but, you know, she's developing, she's growing.
She is. This was her first 10-rounder. In the co-main event, we got another look at unbeaten Australian up-and-comer Dempsey
The Tower.
McKean.
Standing in at about 6'6", fighting out of the southpaw stance, he took on German up-and-comer
Patrick Korte, decent enough record. 18 wins and just 1 loss ahead of this fight to Dempsey McKean.
who ahead of this fight sported a professional record of 21 wins with 13 knockouts, 22 wins and 14 knockouts now. This thing didn't last long.
Yeah, Dempsey McKean established dominance early, drew blood early in the first round against Patrick Korte, the somewhat smaller fighter, the more pocket-sized fighter of the two. It was on Patrick Korte to try to close the distance, close the gap on the more statuesque and physically imposing Dempsey McKean, who was moving those legs to create space and create room to throw punches that actually have something on them. We saw Dempsey go to the body a bit.
Had an immediate effect on Patrick Korte. Took the fight right out of that guy.
By the second round, he had already quite noticeably slowed down, slowed from what we saw in the opening round. We saw Dempsey create space, get punches in there, uppercuts as well, mid-range to inside.
All things considered, I think Dempsey managed the situation quite well.
Quite well against Patrick Korte, who bears a striking resemblance to the YouTuber The Real Jordy.
Rumor has it you never see those two guys in the same room.
Coincidence? I think not.
In any event, Dempsey McKean beat the hell out of this guy in 3 rounds. Just 3 rounds.
At this stage in Dempsey's career, he is showing some ring savvy, some understanding of what he needs to do depending on who is opposite the ring. I think he managed the distance well for a man his size, being able to move around the ring and create that space to get quality punches, quality shots in there. Didn't seem crude.
Yeah, he showed some ring IQ. He did.
He did. Got the guy out of there fast. And because Dempsey is 22-0, no losses, no draws, they can stand to step him up a bit, just a bit. They shouldn't be in any hurry to get into world title contention because overall, the world title picture, it's actually very crowded. I mean, it really just boils down to Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. The only logical fight left for those two fighters, those two decorated champions, is to face each other. And there are a lot of guys already waiting in the queue. Daniel Dubois by way of the WBA, Joe Joyce by way of the WBO.
Philippe Hrgovic's in the queue by way of the IBF. That's a potential matchup that can be made down the line because both Philippe and Dempsey, they're matchroom fighters.
The story is that Dempsey McKean was in the running for a Dillian White fight, but that didn't materialize. That didn't happen. As a result, Dempsey ended up making an appearance on this card, Matchroom's maiden voyage into the Australian market. That's yet another fight that can be made down the line. For now, it looks like Dillian is going to try to get himself in the winner's bracket at some point next month against an opponent that has yet to be announced. Sincerely doubt it's going to be Dempsey McKean.
No way, the guy just fought.
My honest opinion. Dempsey McKean shows some talent, some ability, some power. There's some ingredients there, some promising one. He's got good size in today's heavyweight landscape, today's heavyweight division where the average guy is anywhere from 6'3" to 6'9".
The guy looks so right. He's got a little bit of tools.
He's all right. But because the world title picture is already bustling and so crowded, so many guys that are waiting in the queue for their world title opportunity, for their world title shot, what I honestly think Dempsey McKean should do is step up gradually, step up slowly. Don't be in any hurry to go in there biting off more than you can chew. Amass more professional experience. Get more rounds in the bank before you try to have a signature fight.
Go in there with some of the more familiar journeymen before you decide to go in there with some of the top contenders.
Familiar faces. Dempsey McKean has fought. He's been in there with Johnny Rice. He's been in there with Ariel Bracamonte.
Those two guys have been around the block a few times.
He'll be around the block a few more. I think what Dempsey McKean should do here at 22-0, keep fighting journeymen. Keep amassing professional experience before you decide to share the ring with a Filip Hrgovic.
If he doesn't want to do that, if him and his team think they're ready for a Hrgovic fight already, hey, I'll fucking watch it.
Whatever happens.
But I'm looking at this guy. He's got some talent, some ability. He's got some things working for him. But those eggs need more bacon. And finally, we come to the main event of that same card, the battle of the unbeaten Aussies, Brock Jarvis versus Liam Paro. Unbeknownst to most, Brock Jarvis debuted as a super flyweight at the tender age of 18 years old, and he's moved up considerably in weight since then. His last fight was at lightweight. This fight with Liam Paro, this fight was up there at 140 pounds, super lightweight. I say it all the time. The super lightweight division, it really ain't for the faint of heart. And any guy moving up from 135 up to 140 needs to be on their P's and Q's, because if 140 is anything, it's
to land the dangerous southpaws, that's what it is. Dangerous southpaws. You're talking about
Josh Taylor, Jack Casserole, Regis Prograrius, Jose Zapata, Montana Love,
Sandor Martin,
Gary Antoine Russell, and now Liam Paro. You can add Liam Paro to the list of dangerous and formidable southpaws you have to mind yourself around, as he walked Jock Jarvis into a straight left hand.
I saw him land that same backhand. I saw him land it just before knocking out Brock.
I saw him land it at the start in the first round, where the fight ended. I saw him land it, and I told myself, I says,
Brock Jarvis better clean that shit up.
He cannot afford to get hit with too many more of those. It's never an encouraging omen. It's not an encouraging sign when the man opposite the ring can land his power shot, land his backhand on the guy so early in the fight, when the guy's supposed to be still fresh, supposed to be still sharp.
If you can't do nothing about those shots early, you won't be able to do nothing about those shots late.
Jock Jarvis didn't get to make it to the latter stages of the match. He didn't make it out of the first round. Liam Paro, he took him out.
Took out Brock Jarvis, who's trained by the legendary Jeff Fennick. Jeff, he had a lot of faith in Brock, and I understand that.
You know what I think? I think that Brock Jarvis likely outgrew the lightweight division, and he was likely forced to move upstairs, forced to move up to 140 pounds. But Liam Paro, he's more used to the weight. He is a 140-pound fighter. He's the one with the rank. He's the one that actually had something here to lose, and he put it on the line against Brock, and Brock
got splattered.
Jock Jarvis, who's only 23 years old, it's probably better that it happened this way, that he didn't sustain a whole lot of punishment before being knocked out. It's probably better that the fight ended in the first round. Flash knockout.
Don't forget that late last year, Jock Jarvis, he came very close to being knocked out by Alejandro Rodriguez.
And that was down there at lightweight. That's likely what coaxed him to move upstairs to 140 pounds. He probably figured it's getting hard to make 135. Punch resistance is waning. He's a young guy. He's only 23 years old. He can rebound, but he really does need to take his time.
Lucky for him, he has time. He's only 23.
Because he's at 140 pounds now, and I told you, 140 pounds is the land of the killers, the land of the southpaws.
The dangerous ones. Liam Paro, one among them.
Just took out unbeaten Brock Jarvis in one round off a straight backhand, a straight left hand. Congratulations to him, and what the hell are you supposed to say? We then go to the other card that went down this weekend in Australia, the top-ranked card, the rematch between Davine Haney and former champion George Kambosos Jr., that for my money was a more entertaining fight than the first one was, mostly because George decided to take different kinds of chances in this fight than he did in the first one. He was real herky-jerky, alternating from southpaw back to orthodox.
He was doing his best to give Devin Haney different looks.
Doing his best to try to keep him on his toes, keep him confused. Doing his best to try and make it a more physical fight, a more rough and tumble fight than the first one was. And it's just like I told you in the build-up. George can't change all that much. The most that he can do is take more chances in the rematch to see if he can't land bigger shots, bigger punches. But at the end of the day, all that's going to do is get him hit more, which is what we saw. We saw more offense from Devin this time out, more right hands.
More counter shots as there were more countering opportunities and more opportunities to land big punches because George opened up more.
He left himself more open for shots in this fight than the previous one because he took more chances in this fight than he did in the previous one. And as a result of that, it didn't really help him bank very many, if any, rounds. I think I only saw one round that I could give to George. It didn't help him.
He did fight differently in this fight than he did in the last one, but it didn't help him bank very many rounds. It did help to make the fight more entertaining, though.
At minimum, it did that. In the latter stages of the match, as Devin was really laying into George, George had a cut on the right side of his head and a cut on his left eye. He was really banged up in this thing. Took a lot of punishment. Devin, not being a characteristic power puncher, he wasn't able to get him out of there, though in the later stages of the fight, it looks like he came close. But George was able to weather the storm. Don't forget that George Kambosos is the same guy that got knocked down by Teofimo Lopez late in their fight. Teofimo, who is a power puncher. And George weathered that storm. He was able to weather this one against Devin, but he lost wide.
It was interesting in spots, definitely more entertaining than their first meeting, but Devin
bossed this thing. He was in control. Ahead of the rematch, ahead of the fight, at the weigh-in, a lot of people expressed concern over the state of Devin Haney. Was he cutting down too much, too often? Was it time to move up in weight? I maintained a position to where I need to see how the guy looks in the ring. I need to see if he's match fit before I decide that maybe he should move up in weight. And based on how he performed, the kid looked great.
He exhibited the same level of control in the rematch that he did in the first fight. He just threw bigger shots and landed bigger shots.
In spite of his gangly appearance at the weigh-in for the match, in the fight, he was sharp, he was fast, he was strong. Didn't look flat at all, the way a fighter does when they've been cutting weight for too long.
And that's the real indicator.
That's what tells the story, how the fighter performs. And he performed great, so I'm still holding out hope that we actually get that Lomachenko fight, that Lomachenko showdown, because I think there's a lot of money in it for Devin. There's certainly something in it for Vasyl Lomachenko.
The chance to become an undisputed champion. That's what he's wanted the whole time. Now one guy
has all those belts. It's more than ideal for Vasyl Lomachenko. It's ideal for Devin Haney as well. He can be part of a big money fight, what could be billed as a pay-per-view, and I'm all for it because I've been waiting for it.
Now it's just a question of whether Devin Haney wants it or not.
Congratulations to him for living up to my expectations.
Keeping those belts.